Okay, hello my friends. We are back once again, live streaming this beautiful book, Choose Only Love. The name explains itself, doesn't it? And we're on chapter 12 today, I believe. Choose Only Love. Book 1. Making our way through. We're making some progress here, you know? We'll get through it eventually. Keep just picking away at it. One chapter at a time. The joy is in the journey, isn't it? Not the destination. We're not trying to get anywhere other than this perfect peace that we've never left, of course, that's right here, that is our very source and essence. Sure, the journeyless journey, the distanceless path to the home we've never left. And today's chapter is called The House of Cards, which sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? Like it might all come tumbling down. Last chapter was called The Dream of Adam, so I wonder if Adam's dream is what might come tumbling down, which is scary on one perspective, but from the heart of pure knowledge, it's all that's longed for, that this false dream could come tumbling down. So I, for one, welcome the collapse of illusions, because our home was never there anyway, was it? Not really. So, a message from the voice of Christ through a choir of angels in the presence of Archangel Raphael and Archangel Gabriel, who are always here with us, enabling the communication. I guess this is the medicine of God, from what I remember. Raphael and Gabriel is like a communicator of God. So it makes sense. Healing and communication. And the voice of Christ is that pure light that has been given words through this text. And it is interesting, we will get other voices in some preceding messages, so stick around for those. Mother Mary makes appearance, and sometimes it's actually like Jesus Christ, the man, more as an personalized expression and less as the pure Christic essence that we have had in these early messages. So those are things to look forward to in the future. Very exciting. The challenge to love. Daughters and sons of light that cannot be extinguished. That's us. Blessed souls, try to remember with a memory that is beyond all time and place. If you haven't practiced that, that can sound kind of mysterious, can't it? But it's the same faculty of memory that we remember last year with, can be used to remember the truth now. The present moment, remembering the present moment, because the present moment is infinitely deep, and memory can serve us in the connection to this present moment presence. Try to reach memories as ancestral as eternity itself. Memories before time existed, before the planets existed, before the wind blew across a barren earth, before the sun embraced the earth with its light and heat, before the birds of the sky embellished the firmament with their flight, before the lilies of the field shone in all their glory, before matter was conceived, before all that, long before everything that can be perceived existed, the soul was. It was radiant, sublime, majestic, pure light, pure potentiality. Ah, wow. I'm gonna faint into this bliss state. See if I can stay present here. Before all was the soul. Before all was the soul. The soul was the light of the Father, emanating from love as a particular extension of true light. In an ineffable movement of pure love, The source of light became particles of light and spread eternal truth. This is how it is. The light of all light, in infinite luminescence, in perfect union, peace and harmony with its source. There where the pure soul is an infinite space of infinite love, where only pure potentiality exists, is where you live. That's where you live in radiant and eternal peace, soul and love. There in the silence of peace is where sweetness resides, where tenderness dwells, where you rest in tranquility, where you are in the eternal reality of the Father, where you are who you are in truth, where you abide in the presence of love and are embraced in the light of life. So this often starts in this sort of celebration of truth and the celebration of the perfection of what we are. And it's just this invitation to bask in the radiance of our God-given beingness and embrace it, soak in it, and bask in the glory of what you are, what I am, what we are, the oneness and the perfect peace that shines as the souls that we are. Everything is possible. Nothing is impossible in the pure potentiality of God. Given this essence of divine nature, it was not impossible that what God is not could be conceived by the mind of the pure soul. I'm going to read that again. Given this essence of divine nature, it was not impossible that what God is not. It is not impossible that what God is not could be conceived by the mind of the pure soul. Even when God himself had extended his I am to his creation, fear was not a conception of pure divine potentiality at its source in God, but was conceived of by the soul as part of the pure potentiality that God had extended to it. So the soul created fear, not God. When the soul was created as an inextinguishable light, it carried in its essence the totality of God. Therefore, nothing was impossible to the soul. The soul was, like the Father, pure potentiality. It still is and will be forever. The Father could never limit the soul because he created it as an extension of his unlimited mind. The pure soul is as unlimited as the pure intelligence that gave rise to it. Not only is it unlimited, but it is pure creative potentiality, just as God is. The soul constantly creates by the mere fact of being. The soul is pure thought, just as life is. As we have already remembered, there is only pure thought. What happened then? The soul decided by its own free will to create a will separate from that of its creator. It asked itself, what would happen if I believed in a different way than God believes? What would happen if I created a universe in which I am autonomous? What would happen if I believe the opposite of love? If I create the opposite of truth? God has no opposite, but can I create one? God has no limits, but can I create a limited reality that imposes limits on love and truth? God is totality, but can I create a separate part of that totality? So, in some of my other videos, I've called this the what if thought, or the whim. Here it's like a what would happen thought. What would happen? What if? What if there was something other than God? This idea in the soul, this idea of curiosity, I guess, a free will that wants to explore other possibilities. In short, the soul in its pure potentiality freely chose to be different from what God had determined it would eternally be. the soul decided to create separation. The soul, or rather the part that split from pure soul, chose autonomy. So here we have it, the story, at least a poetic description of how separation occurred as perfection willingly explored what it would be like to be something else. And this puts this idea of choice and will into it, that we are not victims of the world we see, but we are actually the willing creators and participants in it. Everything is allowed. Once the idea of separation was conceived and accepted, the soul advanced to a new creative dimension. Movement continued. The soul believed in the truth of its idea. Creation continued to spread without interruption of any kind from the creative source that is God. But now more fear than joy was being created. Then a concatenated series of ideas. I feel like I saw this word once before and I really don't know what it means. Concatenated. I think it means that one comes after another, logically, kind of cascading out like it had to happen kind of thing. Anyway, we can look it up and see. It's an interesting word. Concatenated series of ideas and thoughts, all in perfect harmony with the idea of pure fear, followed one upon another. Now the totally fearful consciousness that is the ego sought to continue its existence, because the self that had emerged from the idea of separation did what every self does. It wanted to be, and it sought to achieve that goal logically. For the ego is logical. Its logic is impeccable, even though it is apart from the truth and love that is the foundation of reason. So, yeah, there's not much else to say here. I feel like it describes it so beautifully, how once the idea of fear and separation was bought into, a huge plethora of other ideas logically follow upon it. And that the whole ego structure actually does make a kind of sense with an insane premise at its root. The insane premise is, I'm separate from God. And it's just not true. But once that belief has been invested in, then every other belief of the ego actually makes perfect sense from that place. Competition, strife, fear, guilt, everything. Don't have to go into it, but you get the picture. The micro droplet believed itself to be separate, sought to enjoy the harmony that it remembered as pure soul. The ego is creative, coherent, and powerful. Fear is creative, coherent, and powerful in the same way as love is, but with a big difference. A big difference, not a subtle difference. The big difference is that the power and creativity of fear are illusory. The power and creativity of love is real. Fear is contraction, a condensation and unconsciousness. Love is extension, immutable conservation, and unlimited consciousness. You may wonder why love is said to be an extension of infinite power, whereas fear is said to be contractive and limited. The answer lies in the fact that fear is the opposite of love, and that essential characteristic of fear, whose primordial origin is the pure soul, is its weakness. Now the conditions were in place to create and build, or rather imagine, a house of cards. A house of fear was erected within the universe of love. At the moment of the creation of pure spirit, which is a movement without end, space was conceived, although not as you conceive of it in the realm of time and space. It was rather space as pure abstraction, an unlimited thought, a space where all thought could exist, a space so vast that it allowed pure potentiality to be expressed without limits. The perfect knowledge we have, and that now you are beginning to remember, of that boundless space of pure intelligence is what has led us to tell you once again, sisters and brothers, in the universe there is enough space for everyone and everything. So that pure, spaceless space before measurable space is an aspect of the true creation of God, the kingdom of heaven. And it's a memory that we all have in our minds. And that memory is what brings us to texts like these, the memory of the pure love and the infinite space before time and space. That spaceless space, which is expressed without limits, is what draws us into these texts and explorations that serve to undo the illusion of the limited mind into the memory of the totality and the wholeness and the undifferentiated beingness that we can't help but remember, because it is still the most essential aspect of what we are in every moment, no matter how much we forget and no matter how much we invest in fear. That truth of us cannot be blotted out of existence. It just cannot be. Nothing can limit your mind. Nothing can limit your heart. You are unlimited always. You can believe what you want to believe. You can feel what you want to feel. You can extend what you want to extend. You are free, always free, free to create your experience. So free that even when you choose not to extend love, you are exercising free will. Sisters and brothers, if you understand it well, here lies the true meaning of the expression, nothing is impossible with God, and also the expression, you always do the will of God. For the will of the Father is that you exist eternally within the pure potentiality of love. So it seems like what it's saying here is that even our experience of limitation, lack, fear, guilt is part of the infinite freedom that we have, that we are able to choose to seem to be trapped, limited, and caught within our own dream of suffering. But it does not negate the perfect. It's kind of takes a great deal of creative and imaginative power to create and make it so engaging that we forget that we even did it. We got lost into our own creation, our own dream, because it's so engaging. Separated from love is allowed. It's allowed. Do you remember when you were told that everything is allowed, but that not everything is convenient? He who spoke those words almost 2,000 years ago spoke from the mind of Christ. Is it surprising to see what happens every moment when you either create from love or its opposite? So this is kind of a beautiful turnaround of limitation is freedom. And the belief that we can be separated from love, it's just simply allowed, It's allowed, it's okay. We can do it. And if we want, it's kind of like you can do it. The pure freedom of like giving a child its freedom so it can see that it actually doesn't want to do the thing that it's free to do, It doesn't want to, I don't know what, like hit its toys with a hammer or something like that, If you had a child and it's like picked up a hammer and then it wants to start smashing its own toys and you try to stop it, but it still wants to smash its toys, And then you just say, okay, you know what? You're allowed. You can smash your toys. And then it learns a really powerful lesson about how it doesn't want to smash all its own toys, That's kind of like the freedom that we're given here, the freedom to live in an insane world, and in a world of war and disease and death, And it's allowed. We can do it. Sure, you can. We have that freedom. A time for fear. Okay. Now, remaining in the silence of your hearts, you are in the perfect condition to observe without judgment how the house of cards was built. To observe the strength of fear within the realm of love. You can observe the house of shadows within the abode of light, the palace consecrated to illusion within the infinity of truth, the house of fear inside the house of truth. Mega Suaveman, hello. Right, like, does this action or belief make me feel the way I want to feel? Right. Yeah, exactly. We're free to take on each one that in any moment and see and experience its results. Isn't it like that? Yeah. If not, I am free to make a different choice, right? Although it can feel very difficult to uninvest from ones that we've been really dedicated to for what seems like a long time. But when we see the freedom that we have, then it all becomes clear in a moment that we don't have to continue to invest like the sunken cost fallacy in something that's causing us suffering and making us feel like shit, right? Yeah. So, and it's kind of like, it feels like for me, it's when we join in these ways in a shared intention to see the higher truth, then it becomes clear all of a sudden, because we're really clearly choosing to see from that higher place, in this moment. And then that's like empowered. That choice is empowered in the present moment. And yet to hold to this higher view all the time, still seem collectively we move back and forth. And this is somehow of service too, because we need the contrast in order to learn the lesson so thoroughly, that we just see insanity for insanity without even needing to judge it or anything like that. It just becomes clear in our experience, and then there is no choice, actually. The choice is no longer even a choice. It's no choice when you see it in its truth. Yeah, so thanks for joining me in the clarity and continuing to join in this intention. I really appreciate it, and appreciate you being here. And we can observe the house of shadows within the abode of light, the palace consecrated to illusion within the infinity of truth, the house of fear inside the house of truth. So we become more and more clear about how the house of fear is built. And sometimes we have to be in it to really understand its workings. See if you can remember, with a mind that goes beyond all time and place, see if you can bring the imagination to uncreated truth. See if you can let yourself embrace the totality of love that extends without limit into the eternal multidimensionality of creation. Open your mind, at least for a few minutes, while you receive these words. Leave behind all mental limitations, all preconceptions of a reality so limited, so cold, that everything puts on a coat. That's kind of a funny way to put it. Cold reality. Did you really believe that the boundless intelligence that is the divine mind would only create a reality limited to 3 dimensions? Did you really believe that the pure potentiality that is unconditional love could only create a world of if this, then that? Can you begin to remember that God is infinite, and therefore his creation is a multi-dimensional reality that exists in unlimited abstraction, in pure endless potentiality beyond all understanding? I love these questions. Just this beautiful opening to the pure abstract love. And it almost makes the limitation seem absurd, doesn't it, in the way that it describes it. In silence, let yourself be embraced by love. Let the light of truth shine in you. In peace, remember the tenderness of the love in which you live, the fullness of self that you are, the reality in which the soul, the spirit, and God exist in perfect peace and unity. In the stillness of self, begin to remember the pure eternal potentiality of love. Feel the joy of the soul that lives united to its Creator in the light of eternal truth. Experience now the ecstasy of the soul that dwells in the unity of spirit with God. Rejoice in the perpetual happiness of creating forever in love. Yeah, it's a celebration and just receiving of the good news, the grace. The house of cards needed to be created in order to give reality to the idea of fear and separation. In order to be a space is required. Creation is always thought, because reality is pure thought. Given this, the ego created within God's creation a kind of sub-creation, the separated self, an individual, a personality, an autonomous self. We all seem to have our own version of this autonomous self, and yet it's all the same self living through each one. It's kind of funny and strange. If a foreign thought of love was conceived and crossed into the heaven of God, then the idea of fear could also be created or extended within the divine creation that stretched without end. So, next to the creation of matter, which is condensed consciousness, then fear could exist too. There had to be a world in which fear and love were seen face to face. These opposites were necessary to make the idea of separation possible. In this sense, the micro-particle of light, that part of the soul that conceives itself as separate from its Creator and everything, created a world of fear in its own way. Not the earth, but a world that would rule the lives of its inhabitants. Thus arose identification with body and personality, that psychosomatic self. The body and individual mind would live next to another individual self, yet each isolated from the other. Incomplete selves who would seek completion by themselves, seeking from outside what they lacked within. Fractions of incomplete selves, so that their belief in separation, which is also a belief in lack, could be justified. That external world would be the living witness that would constantly remind the ego of its separation, autonomy, and cruelty. Thus was born the house of cards that is your world, whose foundation is the desire to be special. It is a castle that, in due time, will crumble from the breath of truth that shows the perfect equality of everything. The ego was given a kingdom in which to be, a kingdom outside of the paradise of love, and at the same time it was prevented from accessing the tree of life. It cannot be eternal because it has denied the truth. So, pretty clear description of the separation and our sort of human condition, predicament here down in the earth realms. And I think holding it very lightly, which I feel that this text invites us into, is to see it from the true perspective where it's just thought, and it's just, it just is what it is, the thought of fear, and not to be taken too seriously, because this world is what happens when the sense of separation is taken very seriously, and we see what it is, what it shows, what it becomes. A fearful, kind of heavy place. The battlefield. Everything born in time disappears in time. Time was created to give time for the experience of separation. Everything conceived by the ego is temporary, because it is an idea of limitation. In this way, God, in his perfect intelligence, accepted the idea of separation, the idea of fear, the ego, without violating freedom or truth. The ego is simply an option. Fear is a choice, as is love. Neither of these options is sinful. They are simply options. It's like it's all impersonal, right? It's all metaphysical and just appearances in an infinite mind. It takes all the morality out of it, doesn't it? And the personal heaviness of it out of it. So it can just be seen in its universal truth. It's almost too much for the human mind to handle. I suppose it is actually too much for the human mind to handle. And that's kind of the beauty of it, that the human mind can't handle it. And because the human mind is itself an illusion, stuck in its own dream of separation. It can't handle truth in a universal sense. Because it was desired to make separation real, which in reality is impossible because it is impossible to create an opposite to love, a temporary world was created in which separation seemed to be true. This experience is strictly temporary. The ego wanted to create the experience of being autonomous and separated from God, so a world of opposites was created within the matrix of pure potentiality, the world of good and evil, the world of love and fear, not in created reality, but in the dream of forgetting the self. Now Adam, the molecule from which everything arose in the universe of matter, the particle of the soul that, having split, created multiplicity, fell into a dream. The dream of forgetting God. The amnesia of the soul began. The soul fell asleep in the arms of the God of life. It began to dream a dream. It began to create a nightmare of a world separate from the self, a world of fear and limitation, a world without love, imagining that it was God and creating without God. For this to happen, it has to first or simultaneously create a condensation that allowed it to entertain a limitation of lack and death. That is the body. The body is where the ego lives in the house of cards. It is the perfect creation of the ego. In itself, the body is perfect because it is the medium that allows you to perceive the full range of human experience in time and space. Just as an actor is the perfect medium for a play, the body is the perfect medium to represent separation. This is how the tragedy was born, of the man who believes he is a body and lives inside it. He is trapped in a house of cards. He does not want to recognize that it simply is not true. It is true for him. Wow. A soul embodied in form, in flesh. Yeah, that's a beautiful passage. It's like a... It's just very matter of fact, isn't it? And I don't know, it feels integrating somehow. I'm just going to leave it there for now. I think it speaks for itself, and it's already been a long chapter, so thank you so much for joining me here, and we'll continue on, and I look forward to it next time. Wishing you a beautiful evening or day wherever you are, and yeah, just sending so much love.